My name is Syra Shakir. I'm an Associate Professor in Learning and Teaching at Leeds Trinity University, and I'm here to talk to you about moving your anti-racist thinking into action and changing hearts and minds. So I developed a model, a template, a kind of flow chart so that people can plot and understand their journey of becoming anti-racist and of changing their minds and hearts and kind of implementing actions really. It's not enough to be not racist, okay? We have to be anti-racist. And that involves a lot of looking inwardly, thinking about our own biases, our own prejudices, our own actions, or certainly our lack of actions. So, how can we bring everyone along on this anti-racist journey? How can we enable peers, that's all of us, to self-reflect, to look inwardly? How can we move people's thinking into actions? We need to reach into people's inner consciousness concerning matters of racism. Are they just choosing to ignore what's happening around them? How can we move white privilege into white action? How can we develop a socially just consciousness? It's within this kind of reflection that this self-analysis tool has been developed. So essentially, this tool focuses on racism and being anti-racist, but it can be applied for all aspects of discrimination across the equity spectrum and across the equity diversity spectrum. So what does this model do then? It's seeking to provide individuals a number of areas of growth and development, which include this ongoing analysis and self-reflection of knowledge, understanding of discrimination, and in this instance, it's racism we're referring to. A potential journey of self-discovery, internal questioning, and personal challenge to look inwardly at our actions and responsibilities in eradicating racial inequalities. Trauma-informed around the impact of discrimination on individuals affected, on the community, on mental health and on well-being. A future pathway and destination which involves a journey of personal and professional development to become anti-racist. Acknowledgement of the pernicious nature of denying racism exists and associated concepts of white privilege, white fragility and white supremacy. Taking purposeful and meaningful action to address racial inequalities. This continuous review of the interventions through a theory of change approach to measure and scrutinize outcomes. So what's working, why is it working, and how do you know it's working? And the importance of dissemination of good practice into what is working, so successful approaches can be embedded into institutional practice and to really embed anti-racist practice in your organisation. So we're going to have a little look at the actual model itself, and I'll talk you through the stages. Understand racism and act, developing a socially just consciousness, anti-racist thinking, and moving that into action. That's what we're here to talk about. So we start off with the colonial conscious. And my colleague, Dr. Sean Walton, designed this very first section of the model when I first talked it through with him. And he said, I think this bit is missing. And so you will see that Dr. Sean Walton's addition here, the colonial conscious, is here at the start. So the colonial conscious is really actively seeking to block or derail anti-racist work, denying that there's a problem, or that racism exists, or that somehow it's racist against white people. This is the very first stage. Then we have the closed conscious or closed consciousness. Person is unaware, disassociated, it doesn't impact or affect me. I'm liberal, open-minded, I have privilege. We then move on to the conscious. So moving up a little bit now. So the person at this level has some consciousness around awareness. They have some knowledge that there are problems and difficulties. There's some resistance though, and there's also some defensiveness and potential fragility about the issues. And there is certainly privilege again here that isn't fully acknowledged or understood. We then move into the critically conscious stage, and this idea of being critically conscious. So this is now around the equality and diversity agenda. They're questioning things. There's some understanding of privilege, of differential outcomes, of racial disadvantage, some understanding of discriminatory processes and practice, and also systems that perpetuate racism. There's allyship here. So people are considering allyship and what that might mean. And there's some understanding of trauma and the impact of harm of racism and racial discrimination. We then move into the latter stages of the model, and now we move into being actively conscious. So this active consciousness in this socially just feeling. So at this active point, it's about actions more now. So it's now around trauma empathy. Empathy, it's really moving on that thinking and that understanding to a different level. It's about being an actual ally, yeah? Those actions that make you an ally. It's about being socially just and considering equity rather than just equality. It's designing and delivering solution-focused approaches to address the problems. It's carrying out those targeted interventions and actions. Understanding of theoretical frameworks that can explain the perpetuation of racism, this deeper level thinking and criticality, that dissemination and sharing of good practice about what's working. You're impacting the behaviours and actions of others and influencing, using evidence-based approaches, and you're ultimately influencing institutional, organisational, policy and practice moving forward. And then we have the final part of the model, which is the reflexive consciousness stage. Now, this is trauma-informed, so it's even beyond empathy. It's really about that trauma-informed practice and approach and actions. You are now an accomplice. You've moved beyond allyship and being an ally, because now you are willing to give up your position of privilege, potentially, in order to help those who are most marginalised and oppressed. An accomplice is taking really serious actions around change. And you're undertaking continuous review of those actions. This is built in and embedded into your practice and your way of working. You're using a theory of change to really evaluate. There is scrutiny, accountability, and transparency in what you're doing. You're enhancing and further developing that work as you move forward. There's always room for improvement. You're using evidence-based outcomes. There is wider dissemination of your good practice and of your knowledge and experience and skills. And there is sustainable and embedded change within structures, systems, processes and practice, which is absolutely key, isn't it, to bringing about change. So this is really the model that can help in terms of us understanding racism, understanding how to act, thinking about where we are on our anti-racist journey and on our reflections of becoming anti-racist, what that might mean in terms of our thinking, in terms of our actions and what we're going to do about it and what we're prepared to do about this very wicked issue. And hopefully this will help to bring some of that together in terms of your continuous professional development and your ongoing reflection work in your areas. Anti-racism needs everybody to be involved, and it needs everyone to be accountable and to take on responsibility to addressing this wicked issue that exists, unfortunately, in our society and across our community. Racism harms not only individuals, but everybody. And even those who do not think that they are part of the problem, that in itself is a problem. So we have to move our hearts and minds into action and to become anti-racist. We have to develop this socially just consciousness and really embed good practice going forward. Thank you for listening.